The new Walther PDP match is here. This is the polymer frame model. Coming up, we'll do a look at what's in the box, give you some perspective on where these come from, some comparisons against the Q5 match versions from the past. Flip through the manual, take a look at fit, finish, and features, take a look at the trigger, all the things that we always do in a GBGuns tabletop video. Coming up next. First off, what do you get in the box? Nice broad case that does have hasps, that's hard to say, for locking the little push-pull flip-up style clasps on it, which is nice. I'm not sure I'd call it airline worthy, but it is definitely a nice case. I've already had the gun out to play with it because wouldn't you? You get 3 18 round magazines, witness windowed on the back, as you'd expect. Our federally mandated lock. We get an Allen screw and a little tiny screwdriver type thing for adjusting the sights. Up top is, of course, all of our paperwork, which includes some warranty stuff, some safety stuff, a guide to the optics mounting, and the QR code you got to scan to get your plate in. Yes, they're continuing with that. More on that in a bit. And the manual. Manuals tell us how well they want us to understand a product, how well written, how well illustrated, etc. I think it leads to smarter users, which leads to happier users. So let's see what Walther did for us with this PDP. Nice and large font, multicolor. We have color images, which is nice. Either that or super high rendition black and white, or high resolution. But this is the same manual that was in the regular PDPs. One question I had, of course, was what about ammunition? Because everyone always asks about plus P ammunition. And in here it warns to keep things within SAMI spec. So I'm going to make an assumption off of that since SAMI has a spec for plus P, but not plus P plus, that plus P is okay in this. Plus P in a 5-inch barrel is silly anyways. That ammo really just exists for folks running under a 4-inch barrel that want their ammunition to still perform as if it was coming out of a proper barrel length. Another interesting note that I found in here, the camera will focus for us. Nope, maybe not. is a bit about getting acclimated to recoil and how ammunition can impact recoil. Muzzle energy is a big deal, and you get more muzzle energy out of a longer slide. Does that mean increased recoil? Yes and no. Technically there's more energy going on. However, with a longer, heavier slide, the slide cycles slower, and so it tends to be more enjoyable recoil. It feels softer if you're not really thinking about it. You do have that extra mass reciprocating. However, it's taking longer to do it, and so it's more of a ride than a jar, if you will. If you're curious about this and learning about extra energy or softer energy or finding ammo that can make a difference for you, check the pinned comment. I'll leave a link there to my ammo study of 23 different range loads of 115 grain 9mm FMJ, just basic stuff, and I found about a 40% difference in muzzle energy from one load to the next, from the lowest to the highest. Quite some variances there. Your favorite ammo may not be your favorite ammo anymore. Check that out. All right, on to this plate system idea. I think this is brilliant. I think it saves the consumers and the manufacturer a lot of hassle. Instead of giving you a deck of plates or 0 plates, period, like most manufacturers do, Walther's gone to this QR code setup. And what that does is you scan that, you register your firearm, and tell them which plate you want. It comes in an envelope like this. This is the one for the Leupold, and you get the plate you need. Now, this cuts down on time and cost for the manufacturer, which turns into less time and cost for us, the consumers, and it means not having so much fuss. It's still a free plate. I think some of the people who complained about that system said, oh, I gotta mail off for it, or I gotta fill out a form. Yeah, but it's a free plate. The other option is no plates, or you get a bunch of plates that you're not gonna use, you might lose, and then you end up paying more for the gun. So, I think that's pretty simple. All right, here's the gun. Let's get this chamber flag out. I always love that Walther includes these nice chamber flags in there for the ranges that require them. And before we get too much into the gun, I want to go a little bit into history. back in the PPQ days, you eventually had a 5-inch. This guy, known as a Q5. The coated barrel here was a special limited run deal that I jumped on when I could because I like the look. But it gave you a 5-inch barrel with a little bit of lightning cuts in the slide. Not optics ready because optics weren't mandatory back then. People just dealt with it. But you got a fiber optic front sight and the extra slide, that longer sight radius made for easier, steadier aim. The longer barrel for more energy on target. Those who have competed and shot steel targets that have to be knocked over, or say a bowling pin match, things like that, know that adding an inch of barrel, especially on 9mm, can make a world of a difference as far as how hard your rounds are hitting the target. And that was the appeal here. Now this one is an M1 with that paddle mag release. Look how quick that is. Sorry, Walther, I still love the paddle release. I'm not letting go of it. I'm not shifting my grip, just moving one finger, and I can do my mag changes just like that. So this was the Q5, if you will. Then, in keeping with the competitive spirit, came the Q5 Match. This guy. You can see we have more holes in the slide. It was made optics ready. I've got an old fast fire on here. And had a blue trigger. I've swapped this out since then for the Walther Performance trigger. Don't think I ever did a video on that. But nice upgrade of a trigger. That was an extra couple $100, but this was the previous iteration of what we have here. And this is where some of you say, but Graham, and first off, don't call me But Graham. What about the 5-inch PDP? This already existed. Why do I need this match? What is the difference going to be? The price difference is certainly there. They're both optics ready. You're getting that performance trigger in here. We'll compare those two. You're getting the magazine well, nicely flared, and the serrations, the super terrain serrations, are cut all the way through to reduce a little bit of slide. Is there going to be much difference between these? We'll find that out on the range. What is the weight difference between those two? So our PDP 5-inch that doesn't have the holes, it does not have the magazine well on it, and it has the simpler polymer trigger in it with magazine, is coming out to 1 pound and 9.9 ounces. We add the mag well, we change the trigger, and put some holes in the slide. 1 pound, 11.2 ounces. So we've added 2 ounces of weight, a little more than what adding a red dot normally does to a gun. So roughly the same total weight, but what about the slides? Did these holes make much of a difference? Standard PPQ 5-inch slide, 1 pound and 1/2 ounce. And the new Q5 Match, 1 pound, 0.2 ounce. So we've shaved 0.3 ounces off of the front end of the gun. We're going to be adding some weight when we put our plate and optics on there. That is going to change the shooting dynamic a little bit. So with that, even despite the trigger and the mag well that's on here, you are going to get a shooting experience a little bit different with this than you would with the regular 5-inch PPQ. You might have also noticed that my 5-inch is on the compact frame. These are coming on the full-size frame for now. I also noticed that in the package you do not get the interchangeable back straps. Don't know why, maybe because Walther's ergonomics are just good, but I've got large hands. I've always just kind of enjoyed these. I suppose you could, if necessary, swap the 5-inch slide onto the compact frame, then you'd be losing the trigger, you'd have to move the trigger. Speaking of, let's get that out of the way. Walther and their partially precocked striker or precocked striker, depending on who you ask, is who pretty much set the bar for what nice triggers are like in a striker-fired gun. Their system has been copied by multiple manufacturers who are also now known for having nice triggers. So with this Walther Performance trigger, what are you getting? Well, right off the bat, instead of this rounded shape, you're getting the straight edge. But how does it feel? Trigger safety works. Short take up to a wall. Just enough over travel so you don't throw your shot. Pretty crisp break. And then the other thing that Walther is famous for, very short reset. And you can hear that this spring is a bit tight, hasn't been shot yet. This is a great trigger that Walther sells separately. You can put into your own guns, like I did on my Q5 match, and they do break in nicely over time, and it appears, yes indeed, the colors are slightly different. So I don't know if this is just the color available or this is a anodizing difference, but if you're into colors, that might be something that comes just with this gun. For those who want to see a trigger comparison, if you're not familiar with Walther's performance trigger, here's a stock one from my 5-inch PDP. That's all of our take-up. Versus on the performance trigger, that's the take-up. Break. Reset. Break. Reset. So the reset is about the same, maybe a touch shorter, but your take-up is a whole lot shorter on the performance trigger. Now on to our basics. First off, do we get slide release or ejection with these big 18 rounders? We get ejection. You can see that even with the gun completely upside down, slide lock to the rear, it's kicking. I appreciate that. It's extra easy when you've got metal sided mags inside of polymer grip, but that gives you the extra little bit of help. You might have also noticed that these have a slight ridge on them to help with stripping the mag if you forget how to clear a Type 3, and the mag wall itself has a little cut relief that lets you still get a finger in there to be able to grab, so you're not completely blocked off from the magazine by the magazine well. We'll check our right side at slide, stop, and release. Releases, stops, so it works. Notice that spring sounds a little different, and we'll get to that when we get inside the gun. Coming up front, we've got quite a bit of slide to frame play. Like a lot. Enough that should allow debris to get both in and out of the gun. If you're worried about that impacting accuracy, don't worry, because your sights are attached to the slide. So when it moves, it means your sights move. Same thing with the red dot. Our barrel to slide lockup is very tight, as one would expect from a Walther. We've got plenty of rail space underneath here for lights or weights, etc. And you notice that the super terrain serrations that are new to the PDP line have been cut all the way through. Interesting what weight difference that did or did not make. You guys saw that earlier in the video. I guess that indicates just how much steel was there or wasn't there in the first place. But these same basic PDP lines, we have plenty of texture on the front of the trigger guard for the non-US market and Jerry Michalik, who like to shoot up there. Same frame is essentially what you saw on the full-size PDP. We have, of course, reviews on that and all the Walthers that I've shown here. In fact, we've covered about 20 models now, I believe. Same magazine release. And this slide over magazine well, I'll give you a look down inside, you can see is properly done in that it leads into the magazine well. It's not smaller than the magazine well at any point, which I have seen on some guns, and that provides that extra spot for pinky pressure to help with finding your dot. This is something that the Modern Samurai project is, I've heard, known for coining, but it's a simple truth. It's a maxim of shooting, is oftentimes when people have trouble finding their dot, it's because the gun is nose high, and flexing that pinky brings the nose down. So having a toe kick on the gun there, as we have built in already on the PDP, and even back in the PPQ days, before red dots were a thing, that was part of Walther's design, believe it or not, but it's now famous on the PDP. Same texturing, had no backstraps, I mentioned already. Slide to frame, we've got play in the back. And the other thing that I noticed with this is we've got standard 3-dot sights that are rather simple sights. They are adjustable target sights. I figure maybe they went with simpler sights on that, since today red dots are all the rage and folks don't really pay attention to their irons anymore, unless you're like me and shoot irons. Speaking of, for the range review, I shoot guns as they come out of the box. I don't modify them at all. That includes not putting a dot on dot ready guns because I want you to see what the performance is as the baseline and not let my choice of dot influence the performance of the gun. If you'd like to see this reviewed again with a dot on it, let us know, and we'll take them back out and figure out something new to do with the dot on the gun. Now we've made our way all the way around the gun. Let's take a look inside. Field stripping is pretty straightforward, same method you're probably used to from many other guns. We're going to release the striker, and then you've got these nice broad takedown levers on both sides. Pull them down and bring the slide back just a hair, and then the slide will release and come off the front. It does catch a couple of times. That's something I noticed with the PDPs, but not any mechanical issues that I'm aware of from that. Give you a look inside. You see that we have an insert here. Nice bright copper spring on that trigger. And here's the other insert that I was inferring to. This is, I believe, the same recoil spring that's on the 4-inch models, and they've used a plastic plug to extend the slide so that you only have a 4-inch spring. So what does that mean for how the recoil impulse is going to be? Well, assuming the spring is rated right, it shouldn't make much of a difference. It does change your non-reciprocating mass, and these are, by the way, a polymer guide rod with a flat coil spring on it. Walther themselves and several other aftermarket companies do make steel rods and recoil setups if you want some extra weight there, but I thought that was an interesting choice, as well as this plug being in here. Get the barrel out of the way like you would on any Browning action, and now we can take a look inside of our slide and see that beautiful German craftsmanship. Very nicely done. You can see a little drag spot there where the barrel hood rubs on the slide. That'll be a spot to watch and lubricate. And everything else pretty clean inside. Even one of the screws poking down through from the optics mount. Barrel has a nice broad feed ramp. I hope the camera can show that it's got kind of a roundedness to it. And next we'll check for chamber support. Chamber fitment and chamber support is important depending on the quality of ammunition you're going to use. It also can be an indicator of how good the gun's going to run. I'm going to use some Liberty Ammunition Civil Defense. This is nickel plated, which does reduce friction, but you want to drop it and listen for plunk, like that. Make sure it can turn freely, and it can. And what you're looking for support is how much beyond the shoulder is exposed. As you can see, this is a fully supported chamber. That's a great thing because it means should the brass want to rupture, or the case, in case of a reload or aluminum or something of that like, fully supported chamber is going to help keep those forces going that way and resist them wanting to come down into your hand, which makes for longer lasting guns if that should happen because the frame doesn't blow apart. As I put this back together, which is the inverse of field stripping, I'll tell you what we're going to do in the range video. You'll see absolute first shots through the gun, no warm up, no getting used to it. We just start shooting when the camera's on. So true first impressions, full magazine plus one, though I believe these are the same 18 round magazines that we've already proven with the PDP full size review. We'll do it again. Take it over to the What's for Dinner table to see what the gun eats with 10 additional loads to the range load we'll use. Then to the spinner for sights and trigger control, some practical accuracy, and then give you concluding thoughts. I can tell you, when I reviewed the full-size frame, which is what this has, PDP, a while back, I didn't like it as much as the compact. I liked that I could get my whole hand on it. However, something in the hump didn't feel right, and this one, for some reason, feels fine. I don't know if maybe I've gotten used to it or they've changed something on the back strap, but this sure feels nice. I think I'd also like to do maybe some side-by-side between this and the old Q5 match from the PPQ line. Let me know if you guys want to see that included in that video as well. And as always, for full specs, pricing, where to find these things, etc., check the pinned comment for the full review over at gbgunsdepot.com. Additionally, once a couple more guns are reviewed, I will be updating our PDP guide that has been up there since the beginning. Thanks for watching.